Hello, today we'll be talking about the PMP 450v 4x4 access point. This product supports frequencies in the range of 5.15 to 7.125 gigahertz and is capable of providing 600 megabits per second aggregate throughput using two 40 megahertz bandwidth channels. Future support for 80 and 100 megahertz channels will provide enhanced performance with up to 1.5 gigabits per second of aggregate throughput. As part of this video, we will be covering the PMP 450v out-of-the-box components, the physical features of the radio, preparing for the installation, and the actual installation of the 450v 4x4 access point. Let's begin by looking at the components that make up the PMP 450v access point. First, we have the radio and the sector antenna assembly, the upper pole mount bracket, the lower pole mount bracket, a set of 4 pole mount bracket bolts, a bag containing the bracket attachment bolts and nuts, 2 cable glands, and a product information leaflet. First, let's look at the radio assembly. On the lower side of the radio module, there are 3 ports. First is the main Gigabit Ethernet port, which is used to provide power and communications for the unit. This is the SFP port, which accepts optional fiber or copper SFP plus modules for network and data control. This is the aux PoE port, which may be used for the connection of an optional auxiliary Ethernet device, such as an IP camera. This port supports 802.3 power over Ethernet. The cable glands for the SFP and aux PoE ports are not included and must be purchased separately. There is one more port on the side of the radio module. The aux audio jack supports GPS synchronization input and output, along with power out for optional UGPS or CN pulse. A cable gland this size for this port is included in the box. There is also a row of LEDs, which indicate power applied, GPS sync status, and link speed, as well as activity for the main and aux Ethernet ports. Additional LEDs indicate the status of the optional SFP port and the presence of power over Ethernet on the aux Ethernet port. Assembly requires the use of a 13 and 27 millimeter wrench. A torque wrench is optional but recommended. First, attach the upper pole bracket to the sector antenna using the M8 nuts provided. The upper bracket is the one with the curved slots for adjusting the down tilt. It mounts above the handle end of the radio with slots curving downward. Tighten the M8 nuts to the 5 Newton meters with a 13 millimeter wrench. Now attach the lower pole bracket to the radio module by inserting the M8 bolts through the bracket and screwing them into the thread holes in the casting. Tighten the bolts to 5 Newton meters with a 13 millimeter wrench. Insert the long M8 by 160 millimeter bolts through the square holes in the front mast clamps. The bolt head needs to be on the radio side of the clamp. Thread an M8 nut onto each bolt to hold it in place and tighten it to 5 Newton meters. Next, you'll attach and align a front mast clamp in each of the pole brackets and thread the M8 by 12 millimeter screws into the mounting holes. Tighten these screws by hand, leaving them loose enough to allow for adjustment of the brackets when mounting the AP to the mast. Then, slide the rear mast clamps onto the 116 millimeter long M8 bolts, ensuring that the clamping surface will face the mast when mounted. Then, thread the M8 nuts on a short distance into the bolts. Make sure to allow enough room to hook the slotted end of the clamp behind the nut when the antenna is being mounted to the mast. The PMP 450v access point is now ready for mounting. Here we'll demonstrate how to attach the unit to a vertical mast. Free the slotted ends of the rear clamps and slide them around the mast before inserting them behind the long bolts. Tighten the M8 nuts to 10 Newton meters on the long bolts using a 13 millimeter wrench. The bracket is designed to allow up to 10 degrees of down tilt and 5 degrees of up tilt. Please note that the sector antenna design includes 2 degrees of built-in electrical down tilt. When the desired amount of tilt has been set, fully tighten the screws on the sides of the pull brackets to 8 Newton meters using a 13 millimeter wrench to lock the antenna into place. Now we'll install the main RJ45 Ethernet cable using the gland provided. Disassemble the gland into its component parts: the gland body, the rubber seal, and the retainer nut. Pass the Ethernet cable through the retainer nut, followed by the gland body. Insert the Ethernet cable firmly into the main port of the access point. The radio should power up. Screw the gland body into the access point's main port receptacle. This can be tightened with a 27 millimeter wrench, assuring a good seal. Slide the rubber seal over the cable and push it into the gland body ring. Be sure to orient the seal correctly. The side with the indentation should face downwards to engage the teeth of the gland body. Verify that it's fully seated before proceeding. Thread the retaining nut into the gland body, making sure that the Ethernet cable is fully pushed into the gland to avoid strain on the connector. Tighten the retaining nut until the rubber ring holds the cable firmly in place and forms a good, watertight seal. A cable gland, sized for the aux audio jack, is included with the 450V access point. This gland uses the same design as the one supplied in the main Ethernet port. If a device is to be used connected to the auxiliary audio port, install the gland using the same procedure.